A devastating injury has just shaken the Commanders' offensive line and could completely change the playbook for the season. Meanwhile, an undrafted player is turning heads on the defensive field and could become the next big surprise for the team. And on top of that, we have the first signs of alarm from training camp that have everyone wondering if we're ready for what's to come. Stay with me because these three stories are going to shape our season's path, and one of them could be the key to the success or failure of the Commanders in the year 2025. Look, I'm going to tell you something about Sam Hartman that many aren't seeing after that 41-18 loss against the Patriots. Yes, it was a frustrating night. Yes, things didn't go as we expected, but there's something about this quarterback that goes beyond the numbers. When Hartman came out after the game and said, as a quarterback, you want to see a win, see good results, and you take responsibility because the mistakes are on you, I think we're witnessing something special here. But let's dig deeper into what really happened that night because details matter. From the first snap, everything looked disconnected. That first play, the incomplete pass to KJ Osborne, wasn't just a poorly thrown ball. I reviewed the footage and there was a breakdown in communication. Either Hartman thought Osborne was going to make a different break, or Osborne didn't execute the route as designed. But here's the difference. Hartman didn't blame anyone else. He said, that's a pass I have to complete, period. And you know what? That mentality reminds me of something I saw with Trent Williams years ago. The great players in this league, when something goes wrong, they immediately look inward. They don't make excuses. They don't point fingers. Hartman is showing that veteran mentality while being a third-string quarterback who has barely seen significant playing time in the NFL. Now, let's talk about that second possession he mentioned. The defense forced a fumble and gave them a short field, a perfect opportunity to score. Hartman had Ben Sinnott completely open crossing through the middle, a route that should be automatic for any quarterback. But the ball went high and behind. The tight end. In situations like that, it's easy to say, well, the receiver moved or the protection broke down. Hartman said, that's a play I need to make, period. But here's what really impresses me. After the game, when reporters asked him specifically about the drops the receivers had, he could have used that as an excuse. There were at least two passes that bounced off his receiver's hands that could have changed the game's momentum. Do you know what Hartman said? The receivers did their job. I have to put the ball in a better position for them to make plays. That's the mentality we need in Washington. For years, we've had players who look for scapegoats. The coaching was bad. The offensive line didn't protect me. The receivers didn't run the correct routes. Hartman is setting a completely different standard, and it's noticeable in the locker room. Joe Witt Jr. told me something after the game that stuck with me. He said that after every incomplete series, Hartman would come to the sideline not to complain or seek excuses, but to ask the coaches what he could do better on the next possession. That kind of coachability is exactly what Dan Quinn is trying to establish in this culture. And let's talk about that deep play mentioned in the report. Hartman threw a perfect ball to the corner of the end zone, a throw that many veteran quarterbacks cannot make. The New England cornerback made an incredible play to prevent the touchdown, but that ball was exactly where it needed to be. Just that the defense gets paid too. But after that play, when the coaches told him it was a great throw, you know what Hartman replied? Great throws don't matter if there's no score. I have to find a way to put points on the board. That mentality, that obsession with results instead of individual performance, that's what separates the winners from the losers in this league. I'll tell you this, the preseason is exactly for this, for players to make mistakes and learn. But the difference between Hartman and many other quarterbacks we've seen in Washington is that he's not using the preseason as an excuse. He's treating every snap as if it were the playoffs. The accountability Hartman is showing is going to filter through the whole roster. When a third-string quarterback who played less than half an hour takes full responsibility for a 23-point loss, that sends a clear message. The veterans see it, the rookies see it, and everyone understands that in this organization, it doesn't matter your draft position or your contract. We are all accountable. Do you know the last time we saw that in Washington? Because I've been following this team for decades, and I can count on one hand the times I've seen a player take that level of responsibility. Alex Smith did it, Trent Williams does it, and now Hartman is showing that same mentality. The question I'm asking you is this. Do you prefer a quarterback who throws for 300 yards but blames everyone else when they lose, or one who Struggles but always looks inward first? Because I believe Hartman is showing us the kind of character Dan Quinn wants as the foundation of this organization. Now, let's talk about something that really excites me, and that could be the biggest story of this preseason. Tyler Owens. This kid from Texas Tech is about to completely change our defensive rotation, and I'm going to explain exactly why. This is more significant than most people understand. First, let's put this into perspective. Quan Martin and Will Harris are going to be our starting safeties, that's clear. But in modern football, especially with the schemes Joe Witt Jr. wants to implement, you need that third hybrid safety who can do literally everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Cover slot receivers, drop down as a linebacker, rush the passer, play deep coverage, defend tight ends, support run fits. It's a position that requires an extraordinary athlete, and Owens could be exactly that piece. But let's go to the numbers first, because numbers don't lie. In last year's NFL Scouting Combine, Owens was ranked as the best pure athlete among all safeties. Not top 5, not top 3. Number 1, his vertical jump, broad jump, his explosiveness numbers from the lower body, all of that is in elite territory. At 6 feet 2 inches and 213 pounds, he has the size that teams look for in modern safeties, but also the speed and agility you need to cover in space. Now, why wasn't this kid drafted if he has all these traits? Because as the report says, he simply hasn't played much football in his life. College production was inconsistent, technique was raw, instincts needed development, but Dan Quinn and his staff have worked a full year with Owens, and what we saw against the Patriots was the result of that development. Joe Witt Jr. basically used Owens as a chess piece against New England. One play, he's lined up as single high safety in center field coverage. The next play, he's walked down as middle linebacker in run support. Then he's aligned as weak side linebacker in nickel coverage. Then he's playing right on the line as an edge rusher in obvious passing downs. And here's the most impressive part. He's flipping sides constantly, following formations, matching personnel. You know what that means? It means that the coaches trust his football IQ enough to give him multiple responsibilities in real time. It's not just go and tackle. It's read this formation, identify this personnel group, adjust your alignment based on what you see. Execute your assignment perfectly. That's advanced stuff, and Owens is executing it like he's been doing it for years. But let's talk about specific plays because that's where you really see his impact. On one particular play, New England ran play action from 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end. Owens started aligned as deep safety. But when he saw the formation and recognized the potential for intermediate routes, he automatically dropped down to take away the seam route from the tight end. That's not coaching, that's instinct. That's feel for the game. On another play, the Patriots ran outside zone to his side. Owens started as a linebacker, but immediately recognized that the tight end was trying to reach block him. Instead of getting washed down the line, Owens used his burst to beat the block and make the tackle for minimal gain. That combination of recognition, technique, and athleticism is exactly what coaches dream about. Now, not everything was perfect. That missed tackle on Trevelyan Henderson mentioned was ugly. Henderson ran a simple check down route to the flat, and Owens had perfect angle and positioning. But when he went to make the tackle, Henderson made him miss with a simple shoulder. Fake. That's the kind of fundamental mistake that separates rookies from veterans. But here's the interesting part. Owens' diagnosis on that play was absolutely perfect. He saw the route developing, read the quarterback's intentions, took the correct angle, arrived at the right time. Everything was correct except the actual tackle attempt. And that, honestly, is much easier to fix than poor instincts or bad positioning. Jason Simmons told me something after the game that really stuck with me. He said that Owens processes information faster than most safeties they've had in years. You tell him something once, and he gets it. You don't have to repeat concepts or explain why certain things work. He just understands football naturally. That kind of football IQ combined with elite physical traits is a rare combination. Tommy Donatel added something interesting too. He said Owens performs better when he's closer to the line of scrimmage. When he's in the box making plays near the action, that's when his athleticism really shows up. He might develop into a deep coverage player eventually, but right now his strength is in run support and intermediate coverage. And that makes perfect sense when you look at his background. At Texas Tech, Owens played more as a strong safety and nickel defender than as a traditional free safety. He's more comfortable reading running plays, defending tight ends, covering shorter routes. That hybrid safety role Washington needs fits him perfectly. Jeremy Reaves is still the better player right now, there's no doubt about that. Reaves understands the system better, makes fewer mistakes, more consistent in coverage. Percy Butler also might be better overall at this point, but none of those players have the upside that Owens has. None have his combination of size, speed, and explosiveness. The reality is we'll eventually need Owens back on special teams because special teams were absolutely terrible against New England. Missed tackles, poor coverage, bad fundamentals. Owens was one of our best special teams players last year, and losing him from that unit visibly hurt us. But the possibility of Owens being a significant defensive contributor is something that should excite every Commanders fan. When was the last time we had an undrafted player make this kind of impact on defense? When was the last time we had a safety with this combination of traits? I believe that if Owens continues developing at this rate, by mid-season, we could be looking at him as a regular part of our defensive rotation. Not just special teams, but actually getting meaningful snaps on defense. And if he takes that next step, if he cleans up those fundamentals and continues improving his instincts, we might have found ourselves a legitimate playmaker. And here we come to the news that really worries me, and not just because of the injury itself, but because of what this injury represents for our organization and our plans for this season. Dan Quinn confirmed that Lucas Niang suffered a torn ACL in Friday's game against the Patriots, and this is much more than just losing one player. This is a blow that exposes exactly how vulnerable we are in one of the most important positions in football. First, let's talk about who Lucas Niang is and why this injury hurts so much. Niang is 26 years old, which in offensive line, years means he should be entering his prime. He was a third-round pick by Kansas City in 2020, coming out of TCU where he was a solid, consistent performer. The Chiefs drafted him to be part of their offensive line depth, to eventually compete for a starting spot. But here's where the story gets interesting and concerning. Niang opted out of his rookie season in 2020 due to the pandemic. That was his choice, and many players did the same. But that means he essentially lost a full year of development, a full year of NFL-level coaching, a full year of getting familiar with professional schemes and techniques. When he returned in 2021, Niang struggled to find his place on that Kansas City offensive line. Played some games, but never secured a starting spot. In 2022, more of the same. In 2023, he appeared in 14 games, but with 0 starts. 0. That tells you that even on a team like Kansas City, known for developing players well, Niang couldn't crack the starting lineup. And here's the part that worries me. Kansas City waived him coming out of preseason in 2024. This is a team that needed offensive line depth. A team that is always looking for value players, and they decided that Niang wasn't worth keeping. They re-signed him to the practice squad briefly, but let him go again before the season ended. What does that mean? It means that Kansas City, with all their expertise in player development, with all their need for depth, decided Niang didn't have what it takes to contribute at the NFL level. And we signed him hoping that somehow we could get more out of him than they could. Now Adam Peters brought him here with the hope that a change of scenery and different coaching could unlock his potential. And maybe it would have worked. But the reality is we were counting on a player another organization had already given up on to be a significant part of our depth chart. That's concerning roster management, especially in a position as critical as the offensive line. But let's talk about the bigger picture here, because Niang's injury exposes something much more troubling. Our depth on the offensive line is simply not adequate for a team with playoff aspirations. Let me break this down for you. Our presumed starters are Brandon Coleman at left tackle, Nick Allegretti at left guard, Tyler Biadasz at center, Sam Cosmi at right guard, and Andrew Wiley at right tackle. That's assuming everyone stays healthy, that all perform up to expectations, that there are no injuries during the season. Already there we're making a lot of assumptions. But what if Cosmi gets injured again? What if Wiley struggles like portions of last year? What if Biadash doesn't adjust well to our system? Suddenly we need that depth, and Niang was supposed to be a significant part of that depth. Chris Paul is on the roster, but he is more of a developmental player than someone you want to rely on for significant snaps. Ricky Stromberg showed some promise, but he's also still learning. Trent Scott has experience, but limited upside. Suddenly our options look very thin, especially if multiple injuries hit. And here's what really bothers me. This injury happened in preseason. Niang was competing to earn a spot, trying to show he could contribute, and now he's out for the entire season. For him personally, this is devastating. He was in the last year of his rookie contract. This was his opportunity to prove himself and earn either an extension with us or a good contract in free agency next year. Now Niang is going to spend the whole season rehabilitating, missing out on earning potential, having to prove himself all over again next year. At 27 years old, with limited NFL success, this could seriously impact his career trajectory. That's the human side of this story that sometimes gets overlooked. But from the team perspective, this puts enormous pressure on Adam Peters to find a solution quickly. Free agency options at this point are very limited. Most teams have already signed their depth players. Most available offensive linemen are either too expensive, too old, or have significant red flags. The trade market is also challenging. Teams generally don't want to give up offensive line depth, especially good depth, during preseason. And any player worth having is going to cost significant draft capital or other valuable assets. Peters might look at street free agents, but those players typically need several weeks to get up to speed with systems, terminology, chemistry with other linemen. You can't just plug someone in off the street and expect them to perform adequately in week one. The other option is promoting players from within. But as I mentioned, our internal options are concerning. Paul and Stromberg are developmental. Scott is adequate, but not someone you want as a primary backup. We might need to expand the number of offensive linemen we keep on the active roster, which means fewer spots available for other positions. Dan Quinn now has to make difficult decisions. Does he keep extra offensive linemen on the roster, sacrificing depth in other positions? Does he risk going thin on offensive line depth, hoping injuries don't hit? Does he ask Peters to make a trade that might compromise future flexibility? And all this impacts Jaden Daniels directly. Our rookie quarterback's development cannot be compromised by inadequate protection. If our offensive line struggles due to lack of depth, if Daniels gets hit too much, if he's constantly under pressure, that could set back his development significantly. The timing of this injury also couldn't be worse. We're trying to establish an identity as a team, trying to build chemistry, trying to prepare for what we hope will be a competitive season. Now we have to scramble to find solutions, adjust game plans, maybe change how we approach certain situations. This injury also highlights larger questions about our roster construction. Are we too dependent on players that other teams didn't want? Are we taking too many flyers on guys with question marks instead of investing in proven depth? Are we being penny wise but pound foolish when it comes to protecting our most important assets? I'll tell you this, injuries are part of the game, but when you lose depth in a position as critical as the offensive line, that can determine your entire season. Peters needs to act quickly and decisively to address this need because we can't afford to let this become a bigger problem when games actually matter. The question for Peters is, what price are you willing to pay for adequate protection for your rookie quarterback? Because right now that protection looks a lot more questionable than it did a few days ago. Look, these three stories show us exactly where we are as an organization. We have players like Hartman who understand what it means to be accountable. We have hidden gems like Owens who could explode at any moment. But we also have harsh realities, like Niang's injury, that remind us that this sport is unpredictable. What do you think about Hartman's mentality? Do you believe that accountability is going to change the team's culture? Does Tyler Owens have what it takes to become a starter in this defense? And how should Peters respond to Niang's injury? These are the questions that define our season, and I want to hear all your thoughts in the comments. This channel is more than a place for news. We are a family of fans who live and breathe Burgundy and Gold together. Give a like if these stories made you think. Subscribe if you want to be part of this community that never gives up on our Commanders. Because at the end of the day, no matter what happens, we'll be here supporting our team. And remember, hail to the Redskins.